I had doctors send me papers on gain of function research at the very, very beginning. Okay, the agency knew this. The intelligence services knew all of this from day one. Steve Hilton from Fox News, who's a weekend anchor, he was reporting on this for weeks and weeks and weeks, and doing some extraordinarily careful and meticulous reporting. Cheryl Atkinson at Sinclair, she did a big report on this for her show Full Measure. She couldn't get Sinclair to put it out. She had to publish it externally because Sinclair knew that they would be absolutely savaged for daring to put it out. Right? How many others are there? Alex Berenson, a former New York Times reporter who has been doing extraordinary work on throughout the pandemic at great cost to himself. He's been hammered from all sides, and he's been right about everything. Speaking up early on about the harm of masks and the uselessness of wearing masks to prevent the spread of this virus. There have been doctors who are being hunted right now today because they dared to prescribe things like hydroxychloroquine. It's not just about the origins of the virus, and it was suppressed for a reason. You know what the sad part is, Jan? They don't care that the truth is coming out now. Because if the truth had come out at the time when the response would have been different, everything would have been different. You know what we wouldn't have done? We wouldn't have allowed thousands and thousands and thousands of drop-in ballot boxes to be placed on streets all over America and state election laws to be subverted in the name of public safety. We wouldn't have taken the same actions that we took because we would have had a very different understanding of this virus. We would have recognized ambulatory protocols. What is that? It means the treatments that they could use in hospitals and all over America at doctors' offices to treat people and send them home. The fear that was created about overcrowded hospitals would never have generated the responses if we had been able to have real conversations about real effective treatments for COVID that did not involve killing patients by putting them on ventilators, which the medical community now admits was the wrong protocol. Doctors didn't know it at the time. I'm not saying for one single second that doctors who were doing this were doing it on purpose. They were lied to. The information that we really had about this was kept from us. The CDC today still does not advocate for ambulatory protocols. The CDC is putting out false guidance today rather than real guidance about real drugs that work. And I'm not talking from a theoretical academic perspective. I've had COVID. I received the ambulatory protocol. I was treated and I recovered fully. And I'm not for one single second am I disrespecting, dishonoring, or dismissing the people who have suffered terribly from this virus and the people who have died and the people who lost those that they loved. This is not in any way meant to diminish these people. In fact, what it is meant I'm standing by those people and standing up for those people and for the others who are getting the vaccine, so-called vaccine, without being told the truth. All the people out there who think it's FDA approved. Where are the stories about the vaccine? We're not allowed to question that. It's still being censored. You still can't watch Pandemic 1 or Pandemic 2. Why not? People say they overreach, the science isn't good, it's blah, blah, blah. Fine. If that's true, then let people see it. Let it speak for itself. If it is based on lies, the film will collapse. If it is based on fake science, people will be able to see that. This idea that we have to protect people from harm, they can't hear information that's not true because of all the people it will kill. How many people have been killed from not telling us the truth about the virus and the origins of the virus, the treatments of the virus, the truth about lockdowns, the truth about the efficacy of masks, the truth about the harm that masks do by reducing oxygen flow to the brain? Why aren't we hearing about any of this? Now we want to talk about the rise in suicides, the rise in poverty, the rise in depression, the rise in cancer, the rise in all the other illnesses that haven't been treated, the homelessness, the depression, the joblessness, the evisceration of the middle class, turning the world into a welfare state. the power that's given to people who were not elected, like big tech, who don't only control the means of communication, they don't only control the public square. They now also, are doing things like collecting our health data, right? Who own a perpetual worldwide royalty-free copy of everything we do on their systems, who've pushed us further and further into a digital world that they control, where we have less and less and less control. Everything we do that makes our lives more convenient, we give up more control, more of our rights, not just our privacy, which has been obliterated, the Constitution, which they're steadily dismantling, not just those things, but the very things that we hold dear to us, control over our lives, the relationships with our children, the definition of family itself. Press freedom is the gateway to all of our other freedoms. It is there. The First Amendment is first in order to guarantee all of the other rights and freedoms of the Constitution. Because without the freedom to report honestly and accurately, there is no accountability. It isn't about Jimmy Kimmel and all those other horrible late night talk shows that have forgotten what real comedy is, right? And become propagandists in their own right. It isn't about that. It is about holding people accountable for real things, not fake things, not fake Russia collusion disinformation campaigns that is meant to terrorize and silence and disable a legally elected, democratically elected government with a denial of service attack. That's what they call it in the information warfare. Denial of service. Ask yourself out there, if you've been subjected to, an investigation by the IRS and you've never done anything wrong with your taxes, but you keep getting investigated, that is a denial of service investigation, attack. That is meant to prevent you from functioning normally. If you're under attack for reporting the truth, as a filmmaker or a journalist, you're having to answer spurious allegations. You, as the Epoch Times, are having to defend yourself against Media Matters for America. That is a denial of service attack. These are coordinated attacks. They are organized. Organized, which means what? There's infrastructure behind them. There's funding behind them. There are people providing that funding. There is an organized network of people who are spreading that ideology, perpetuating those tactics, sustaining them, making sure they reach everybody. There's a legal arm to those tactics. But this is where the real power lies, behind all these charitable foundations that hide behind euphemisms like social justice and sustainable development. And we're going to make the world a better place for everybody, except we're really not. We really are not. We're using charitable networks and foundations as a cover to subvert US law and to go after Americans and to push our own political agenda on everyone and everything and strangle and stifle any form of freedom and any form of free thought that gets in the way of our goals.
Lara, one thing that just struck me here as you were talking a little bit earlier is this idea that, on one hand you have this, I guess this is a kind of a very strong ideological difference between these two positions. One is, there are different points of view, even from a scientific perspective. Let's have it out in the public square about these and figure out what the best course of action is. The other one is, no, there's only one way to think about things, and you have to accept it. Otherwise, you're spreading misinformation or disinformation, because that's the settled science.
Well, there's no such thing as settled science, right? I mean, every science will tell you that, especially when you have something that's emerging and you're learning about it. And more importantly, this is what I revert back to, Jan. In your life, when you talk to people about whatever specialty it is that you have, is anything ever absolute? Things are not absolute. They just aren't. They never are. Except the things that we know in our hearts to be good and to be evil. That's the one dividing line that we can count on. We know that a baby, when it's born, is innocent and good. And people who look at a baby when it's born and describe anything else to it other than that are evil. It's very simple, right? So, how we deal with things, the complexity of the virus, its origins, getting to the truth of that, wading through the misinformation, disinformation, the propaganda, government speak, political speak, bias, etc., etc. Those things are full of gray area and complexity. And the very reason we need to debate them, the very reason we need to question them, challenge them, defend them, re examine them, look at them with the benefit of more information, discuss them, argue about them if needs be. The very reason is so that we can come down in the end to the things we know beyond any shadow of a doubt that we can count on. And people have often asked me, how can you go back to, these places where there is war and all these terrible things happening and subject yourself to that time and time again? And it took me a long time to come up with the answer. There were lots of answers, but the only one that really counted was this one, because I believe in the good of who we are at our best as human beings. And I believe that good is more powerful than evil. And how do I know it exists? Because I have it in me. And that's how I know it's worth fighting for. And I don't have to doubt it. So I don't know, did the Chinese Communist Party decide to release that virus as a bioweapon in an attack, coordinated attack on America, hand in hand with maybe people within America? I have no idea. Can I prove that? Oh, boy, good luck, right? But what I do know is I know that we were lied to. I know information was suppressed. I know that we don't know nearly as much as we do know, right? There's much more we don't know at this point. And I do know that a lie has no legs. You have to keep telling other lies to keep that lie afloat. My mother told me that. My grandmother told my mother that. There were probably a gazillion people before them who told their children that. The things that are passed down to us that survive the ages from generation to generation are the things that are real. You don't have to look any further than that to find the things that are real. And those are the things that guide us. That's why I always tell people about journalism. I never really worked for 60 Minutes. I never did my job any differently for them than I do now. For, the company I work for now and the show that I create, or when I was a young journalist for a newspaper in South Africa that nobody had ever heard of. I didn't work for them because I work for something we all work for when we do it honestly. And that is the truth. I'm trying to find out what's real and what's not real in all of these things. I'm trying to find out what's true and what's not true. What can I hold on to? What can I have to let go? What can I hold in the pending basket, right, to be confirmed? And separate those things out. Anonymity doesn't help me do that. Motivation helps me do that. Evaluating people's motives. And real facts. When the New York Times does what it does today in every single thing it puts out, and they fuse opinion with fact and present it as fact, they commit one of the original sins of journalism. And it breaks my heart because I have so much respect for the New York Times and the work that they have done over the years, and for so many of my colleagues there who are among the best journalists I have ever worked with. And I don't say that as to cover my butt or to, boost people while I take them down, or because it's, something I'm meant to say. I mean it with every fiber of my being. Some of the best journalists ever have worked at that paper. But what they do today as a publication and as a whole is disgraceful. And more than that, the best part, people see it. You don't have to have a PhD from Harvard to recognize BS. When someone's pushing opinion to you as fact, that bullshit meter goes off. That red flag goes off in the back of your brain. And it doesn't always, we don't have an automatic filter that protects us from propaganda. I don't have it. I realized that, coming out of 60 Minutes and that environment, that bubble that I was in, where rarely everyone around me, we all agreed on everything. We all thought, pro-lifers were nutters who blow up abortion clinics. I never thought about it much more than that. And I've given it a lot of thought since then. And when I was challenged by people who were pro-life, I realized that they were right. We never did any honest stories about them, or any stories that were that had any degree of respect or regard for their beliefs and opinions. We treated them like nutters and stood up in defense of Roe v. Wade because that was an absolute truth, right? It was an absolute truth. And now the same people that tell you my body, my choice are saying only with abortion, not when it comes to the vaccine. Well, okay, here we go back to I can see that that's nonsense. This is either true or it's not true. You can't have it both ways. So those are the real things I hold on to as a journalist to guide me. And I don't always get it right. And sometimes you just don't know enough to get it right. And sometimes you just get used, quite frankly. If I'm honest and look back over my career, I can see where I was used. But at the end of the day, people recognize when you are honest and sincere and they care, they hold on to that because the world we live in right now, those are the things that are going to carry us through this very, very challenging time that we find ourselves in now.